Cynnes i chi gyd I Marvel Moiders. My name is Dom. This is Marvel Moiders, number 6, Rhif Chwech, if you can believe it. On Valentine's Day in 2003, Daredevil, the movie, was unleashed on the world by New Regency Studios and 20th Century Fox. 23 years ago this weekend. I've got my KLF shirts on because I know they're all about the number 23. So, 23 it is. So, Daredevil. What the indeed hell? Daredevil is Matt Murdock, is Ben Affleck. Matt lost his sight as a boy in a chemical accident, and a little while later also lost his dad due to organised crime. His dad was Jack the Devil Murdock, with little horns on the hood of his red boxing robe that he went out to. And Jack, the scamp, decided to defy the local crime boss and not take the fall in a fixed fight. A decision, my loves, which cost him his very life. Now, Matt is all grown up, and he works as a lawyer by day, a lawyer who only defends the truly innocent, and also as a masked vigilante at night in subtle red leather, using the superpowers that he developed the same time as he lost his sight. Because that's what happens if you go blind. Suddenly you can smell radio waves. He can see everything around him through using some form of echolocation, and he also is tremendously strong and agile and good at fighting. His best pal is Foggy Nelson, who's also his partner in their legal firm, Nelson and Murdock. Foggy in this film is played by Jon Favreau, who's warming up for his big comic turn as Happy Hogan, his sidekick role in the MCU, working with Tony Stark. The big bad is the crime lord Wilson Fisk, who's kingpin of all of New York City crime. He's played by the ginormous Michael Clarke Duncan, who was delighted, apparently, when he was told that he was cast, that he needed to put more weight on because he was too skinny to play Kingpin. Kingpin actually killed Matt's dad, and he's now hired another killer, an Irish guy called Bullseye, played by an Irish guy called Colin Farrell, to kill a Greek billionaire criminal colleague of his and his syndicate. And this billionaire's daughter is called Elektra, and she is Matt's brand new squeeze, played by Jennifer Garner. So it sounds messy, but it's going to get messier. Bullseye kills Elektra's dad using Daredevil's billy club, which, you know, as a lawyer, Matt Murdock will be able to explain that this is purely circumstantial evidence, but it's enough for Elektra, and she swears to get her revenge on Daredevil just as soon as she's practiced on some sandbags with her katanas to Evanescence, because it's the noughties. Kingpin wants Bullseye to kill Elektra too, just to wipe the whole family out. Bullseye agrees, but he also wants to kill Daredevil because Daredevil made him miss. I never miss. Sounds petty, but it is an existential crisis for him, and, you know, he has killed for less. Said. Elektra tries to kill Daredevil. In the process, she discovers his true identity. She realizes that she's been wrong about the whole thing, but Bullseye then does kill Elektra with her own katana. Daredevil and Bullseye fight on a church organ like a good pair of Catholic boys before Daredevil fires the assassin through the stained glass window, and he hands Gruber's all the way down to the pavement, landing on someone's car. Then Daredevil, there's more fighting. Daredevil fights with Kingpin, breaks both his knees, but with Kingpin at his mercy, he does not administer any coup de grace, but rather just makes sure that he's going to get locked up. The police come, arrest the crime boss. Justice is served. The end. Matt Murdock / Daredevil might be the only Marvel character, the only Marvel hero who's also a practicing Catholic, which my mum would have got very excited about was she ever remotely interested in comics. I mean, his attendance at Mass is poor. His belief in his own redemption seems a little spotty. He also dresses up as a devil, which, when a central tenet of your belief system is that the devil is real and actually walks the earth, that's quite a strong statement. Setting himself outside the community, you might say. But in fairness, Matt is only really cosplaying as evil, as much as he has doubts about his own goodness. He's obviously a good guy. As a Catholic, the kind of ethical, theological questions aren't really considered much, as happens in a lot of Hollywood productions. Matt's belief in redemptive justice does seem a bit shaky in this version of the film, of this story in particular. He leaves this gangster rapist Casada to die on the subway tracks when the train's coming, rather than kind of, rescuing him and making sure he gets locked up in prison. That, I would say, is a little out of character. It's a little bit, Spider-Man killing someone or Batman shooting someone. It's a bit out of character. Matt Murdock as a character, Daredevil, definitely enjoys hurting criminals. He's not a complete do-gooder. And he gets some relief, I think, from the mortification of his own flesh from taking a battering, because he's like, I too am a sinner, I must be punished. But he always pulls the villains off the metaphorical subway tracks, but not in this film. And he's a bit, in the director's cut of this, which I'll get to in a little bit, it's a bit darker again. He's up actively kind of, I am going to see you dead for this. So there's lots of heavy emotion in the film, lots of dark acts. But I would maintain, as someone brought up a Catholic myself, not one now, it's more self-pity and misery rather than Catholic guilt. Catholic guilt has this active ingredient that keeps things interesting for Catholics, because in theory, if you atone for your sins, you have the opportunity to get your sins absolved, the slate's wiped clean, and you're good to go. That then makes the guilt all more powerful, because you can't just write yourself off as a bad person, as maybe your more Protestant types might be tempted to, because there's always the possibility to be good. So it's your own fault for being shit at being a Catholic, which is actually great for being Catholic, because then you keep trying harder to be a Catholic and not be shit. It's a great system they've got worked out there. I'm not really convinced that Affleck's Daredevil ever actually feels guilty. He looks pissed off quite a lot. A couple of times he's a bit unsure about whether he's a good guy or not. Like, he tells a kid whose dad, who is a bad guy, he's just beaten up in front of him, I'm the good guy. The kid probably isn't convinced. I'm not sure Ben Affleck, or I'm not sure Matt Murdock is convinced, but it's not guilt either. There's something missing, a little secret pinch of flavour that's missing. The journalist Ben Urich, who's played by Joey Pantoliano, which I'd forgotten. I always forget he's in it until I watch the film and I go, oh yeah. He works out that this distinctive Billy Club belongs to Daredevil is Matt Murdock's, because Matt Murdock has a very fancy cane made exactly the same, but just adaptations. So I'm surprised that it's only Urich that works this out. And Elektra, you'd imagine, had plenty of chances. But maybe this obvious clue that he's carrying around with him is Matt's Catholic guilt unconsciously trying to get him caught and resolve this dilemma that he's in. Affleck himself isn't a Catholic, so my mum would be relatively down on him. And that's maybe, his non-Catholicism is maybe why he's a bit more successful as the WASP, Bruce Wayne. Not as the WASP, he wasn't in the Ant-Man films, but as the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Bruce Wayne / Batman. Maybe that's more his role. But who was raised as a Catholic? Charlie Cox. They were still in the rock soundtrack era of comic book films at this point. Still, everything still sounds a little bit like The Crow, and The Crow had a fantastic soundtrack, so I don't blame them. But even the grunge soundtrack is too Calvinistic. There's bad and there's good. There's evil and there's good, and the two will never mix. And if you like this is music for the predetermined evil. Music made by Scandinavians and Germans, good Calvinists. So even the soundtrack isn't very Catholic. Two of the main reasons I don't think the film works, for me, and very few things do work for me, I'm self-employed, are that everything in the movie is too shiny. That's the first. And secondly, Affleck and Garner, who sound like a furniture shop, don't manage to muster much conviction either for their romantic relationship or their vigilante careers. There's zero riz from Affleck, which is crazy when you realise that Ben and Jennifer got married to each other a couple of years later. The whole aesthetic is very noughties. The whole feel of the film, not just the look, the mores of the film. It's very shiny, like Spider-Man was, but it's also very black and rainy because it's going for a noir kind of feeling. And that means we kind of end up with like a shiny, dark visual language that doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's like even the dark looks shiny. It's trying to be gritty, but it looks glitty, which I don't think is even a word. Also, it's very noughties in its personal interactions. Matt is quite grabby in his courtship of Elektra, which hasn't aged very well, which is good. The flirting in general is a bit of a grim watch, as I said.
I don't like being touched.
Why don't you tell me what you do like, and we'll start there.
The dialogue is so kind of portentous. Yes, I like rain too in the night time. And then there's this flirty fighting, which is over kind of choreographed. It's Hong Kong style wire work. And this flirty fighting, or flighting, is that a word? That kind of makes the whole situation even worse. Also, Matt couldn't see in the contact lenses he was wearing to give him these kind of cloudy blue eyes. Ironically, as it's blinded him, it's probably made him less able to act the role. He doesn't seem really invested in what's going on. He just seems tired. I think he was a lot more comfortable when he was playing Batman and Bruce Wayne in the other shiny black, rainy settings of the Snyderverse. 14th of February, St. Valentine's Day, this film was released. And the release date is, I think, significant because the studio, 20th Century Fox / New Regency, decided they needed a love story to be the main focus and had the movie cut accordingly, including inserting a rather cynical sex scene. I think sex scenes are often pretty cynical in films, but this is definitely one that wasn't in the original director's cut. The original director's cut was by the director, complicated, by his name, a guy called Mark Steven Johnson, who hadn't done a lot of directing before and just kind of stuck at the project until he ended up helming it, having also written the film. So, fair play to him.
You're fucking Joan of Arc and you're hearing the voices.
He would also go on to write and direct Ghost Rider a few years later. But his original cut of Daredevil was a bit darker, a bit more morally grey, a whole 30 minutes longer, and it had a subplot involving Coolio. I would say of all people, but why not Coolio? What's wrong with Coolio? Being defended by Nelson and Murdock and as a result of this, their defence and Daredevil's efforts forms a kind of pincer movement that ends up Kingpin being sent to jail. The Daredevil in this darker version is in considerably choppier moral waters than the theatrical version. His role in the death of Quesada, as I said, he makes no effort to save her from the subway train. Quesada asks him, who made you judge? And he says,
You did.
I am condemning you to death. That's cut out from the second version. It's just, he's fell on the rails. Oh no. It's a bit more obvious what's going on in the original version. He also, at one point, when he's having his nighttime ritual of climbing into his sensory depriving coffin, he hears a woman and can visualize from his powers a woman crying out for help in the night, and he basically goes, no, you're all right, and gets in his coffin and goes to sleep. Even the kid version is a little bit darker, for want of a better word, because he just says shit, which his dad tells him off for.
Don't curse. What kind of shit?
But there's a bit of dialogue with him between Matt and Foggy, and the Matt and Foggy relationship is one of the better things of the film. Works much better than the romantic one. When Foggy says that he had a guide dog, or a seeing eye dog, whatever they call them in the States, which ran away.
What does that tell you about how emotionally available you are?
There's also a lot more interaction with the priest, the theatrical version, not the director's cut, to try and situate Matt as a bit more of a good guy, I think, and try and explain why he's doing what he is. Father Everett is much more present in that.
Now, this may come as a bit of a surprise to you, Matthew, but we are open on Sundays.
Yeah, so Matt and Foggy's relationship is way better. There's much more of it in this version. It's that kind of, it's not even a bromance. They're just kind of like married couple. Kingpin is a lot more murderous. He kills his own bodyguards the first time we see him, because there's rumours of a leak, so he just kills them both whilst talking about Roman emperors, as everyone does. We get to see much more of Foggy and Matt in court. We get to see a lot more of Ben Urich doing his investigative journalism. It's just a broader story and more kind of about stuff rather than just, our love will last 1,000 ages for some reason, because we have no beers. There is a terrible plot thread around some cufflinks, which in and of itself is almost worth cutting a whole new version of the film to avoid, and I'm not going to go into it now. It's horrible. This was not the first appearance of Daredevil on a screen. The 1989 TV movie, The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, which was a continuation of the Bill Bixby, Hulk, Lou Ferrigno Hulk's TV shows from the 70s. They made a few TV movies, and in this one, The Incredible Hulk is on trial, and he's defended by Matt Murdock. You see him in his court guise as Matt Murdock. You see him nipping about in his black pajamas as Daredevil, which I think might have actually introduced that look to the comics and then later versions of Daredevil as well on screen. There's John Rhys-Davies being a very non-bald Kingpin. Haven't seen the film, couldn't tell you how good or bad it is. It's outside of my purview for this set of videos. But anyway, in that film, Daredevil is played by Rex Smith, who I would know better as a kid of the 80s as Street Hawk, who was like a kind of a vaguely, somehow futuristic motorbike riding street vigilante. So I'd know him as that because I'm old, but everyone else would know him as nothing, presumably. There was talk of a trilogy of Daredevil films set in the 70s and 80s, which sounds like it could have been good. But the rights reverted to Marvel before they really got anywhere with it, and they decided to give Netflix a crack at Daredevil, and instead of Ben Affleck, we had the mega Riz and believably Catholic Charlie Cox stepping up to the collection plate like a good dutiful altar boy. I knew Daredevil as a character from comics that I'd read in the back end of the 70s that I'd buy from the local newsagents in Menai Bridge after we'd been to Mass, in Catholic childhood. Daredevil was very much then about being a fearless acrobat. Even as a Catholic kid, I didn't realise that he was meant to be a Catholic. It wasn't something that was really stressed. He was just an Irish American, Catholic by default. but he was more Daredevil in terms of his fearless acrobatics and being a man with no fear because he ran around being blind. In 1986, comics writer Frank Miller got involved and ramped up the devil angle and the Catholic aspects of the story. You know, man without fear, Matt maybe, but man without Catholic guilt, he certainly wasn't. Miller's tone was bleaker, more expressionist. There was sizzling bacon and eggs, there was cigarette smoke, it was like a Raymond Chandler novel or a classic kind of film noir. There are two stories in the Daredevil comics that are referenced fairly loosely in relation to this film. There's Miller's Born Again storyline, which introduced a lot of these Catholic elements, and the director Kevin Smith's Guardian Devil run, which launched volume 2 of the Daredevil comics in 1998. Guardian Devil gets name-checked in the closing voiceover of the film, where he kind of refers to himself as Hell's Kitchen's Guardian Devil. And Kevin Smith makes a cameo in the film as well, playing a morgue technician who is named Kirby, after the Marvel maestro Jack Kirby, who invented a lot of characters together with Stan Lee, created some fantastic visual images. In fact, there are several Marvel staffers who are name-checked, or their names are attached to various characters in the film. There's a boxer who loses to Jack Murdock, going by the name of Romita, as in like John Romita. Casada, there's a client who's called, of Nelson and Murdoch, called Lee, who pays his legal bills with fish. Stan Lee himself makes his third Marvel movie cameo, playing another bystander who's saved from traffic by a young blind Murdoch. The actual stories, though, don't tell a lot about the film. A Guardian Devil story involves Mysterio, a fake Antichrist baby, and kind of hallucinogenic drugs. And the Ben Miller film has Matt, almost amnesiac, recovering in a convent, where his mum is a nun that he hadn't known about before. After he's kind of destroyed by Kingpin, but then, comes back, he's born again, and gets Kingpin locked up. There's plenty of noir elements, like there's rats, there's rain, there's steam coming off the sidewalk to keep the noir film theme going. The femme fatale is maybe a bit more wholesome, green-eyed, wholesome Greek girl than the usual kind of noir women that are out to get and or sleep with the protagonists. Daredevil as a character is kind of part Batman, as expressionist Freudian horror story, part Spider-Man, just a normal guy trying to get on with huge amounts of grief and guilt. It has all the kind of grim motivations and the personal tragedy of the Cape Crusader, but also the kind of the banter and the joyful acrobatics of the Webbed Wonder. This movie probably leans more heavily on the Batman side of things, but if Spider-Man is a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and he wants to help his community, Batman is more messianic and wants to save the city. Daredevil kind of flits a little bit between the two. Wants to save the city, wants to help his neighborhood. So he's kind of stuck between the Batman and Spider-Man ways of dealing with huge personal trauma. He is like all the war-damaged anti-heroes of film noir. He is battered physically and mentally. There's the unwelcome cliche of him spitting out a tooth in the shower, which is like, unless his superpower involves him growing teeth back like a shark, I don't see where that tooth has come from. And he has, like a pharmacopoeia of pain meds in the bathroom cabinet. I like that stuff. This is, he's patching himself up, he's going on, he's not, Superman. Also, to keep it noir-y, his dad, the boxer Jack, is a bit of a wrong 'un in this version. He's got all these weird prosthetics which make him look like he's in the Sin City movies that Frank Miller wrote the comic of, and then also was behind the films. But his dad, Jack, rather than refusing to have anything to do with the local gangsters, as he does in the comic version, I think, originally, and in the kind of Netflix version. In this one, he does actually start working for the local gangsters in a kind of Rocky Balboa breaking thumbs for moneylenders type deal. And Matt finding this out plays a role in him getting blinded. So obviously his father feels bad about betraying Matt's trust, about doing this dodgy stuff, about his role in Matt getting blinded. He's a much guiltier character than his son ever is, or even Spider-Man is. Spider-Man feels guilty about stuff. In this version of Daredevil, he doesn't really seem to. So what do I like and dislike about this film? I think this is a pretty solid attempt at a superhero film. Ticks a lot of good boxes, but it's derailed a bit by fairly bland lead performances and the studio's insistence that the romantic plot takes precedence. And that kind of robbed us of some good stuff from Joey Pants and Jon Favreau. But it made good money. I think I went to go and see it in the movies, I'm not sure. And it certainly meant that the comic book Marvel movie bandwagon kind of rolled on. What do I not like? The blind jokes. That's all quite naughties. There's one which I don't know if they meant it as a joke, but where a girlfriend whose name is Heather, like Matt's girlfriend in the Daredevil Born Again series on Disney Plus, says on a message machine she's leaving, complaining about his emotional unavailability. It's been 3 months and I've never even seen your apartment. I'm kind of thinking, and he's not seen his apartment either, but that's the kind of level of jokes we're talking about.
Friend of yours.
You know, I've never seen him before.
Again, when it comes to product placement, Mr. Murdock's Fox Studios has no shame. Heineken everywhere. The New York Post everywhere, which that was one of Murdock's papers, which kind of makes sense, because otherwise I'm not sure a newspaper would want to be plastered all over a murder scene in the way it is in this film. David Keith's prosthetics, I don't like. They look weird. I don't see why he's got them. Matt's red tinged wig. I mean, I don't know whether the rumours about Ben Affleck being a guy who wears hair pieces or not are correct, but his hair looks terrible at points, and it's kind of a red tinge, not red hair. It's just black with a red tinge, like he dyes it. What would that be? That'd just be weird. I wouldn't listen to that guy if he was summing up in court. The rain. The kind of the dumbest of all the noir things. Not a favourite cliche. As fallacies go, raining on the outside and on the inside is pretty pathetic. It even rains in Kingpin's office. They even turn the sprinkles on in Kingpin's office when they have a fight. No. There's no stick. The martial arts guy who teaches Matt martial arts and healing techniques and kind of makes sense of the fact that he's able to do what he does, Matt just works out for himself. You know, fair play, latchkey superhero, but no, it doesn't quite make sense. What do I like about the film? There's a lot I like about the film. I feel like I'm always saying that. But there is. Bullseye. The eyes have it. Bullseye, but also doe-eyed. Colin Farrell is amazing. His eyes never stay still. He's positively ADHD. He's kind of got this silent movie matinee idol kind of eye work going on, but also it's transmitting what a very sick puppy Bullseye is. He's able to use his native Dublin accent. He's got a nice Matrix leather coat that he kind of swirls around after himself. I like that he's Irish. I'm assuming that was just done in the film. I don't think he's Irish in the films. I might be in the comics. I might be wrong. I like the panic you can see in his face when this woman is just talking next to him endlessly on the plane. That again, autism goggles. That's the tiz. Why does this woman stop talking? I can't physically handle this. Murdering with a peanut. Okay, that's not the tiz. But the panic, definitely. I like the music. Don't hear any comments about the music, but I like the theme. Graham Revell did the music. He also did the music for The Crow. Watched it a couple of times, the films, both versions, to kind of for this. And the music sneaked up on me and I realised I actually quite liked it. Probably holds the whole movie together. I like the line that the judge comes out with. Does this defence come with a 2-drink minimum, Mr. Murdock? That's nice. And as I said, the sleep, the sensory deprivation coffin, that's emo. Even Batman didn't think of that. He's got to seal himself off from the world. Fair enough, because he hears everything all the time. But yeah, powerful emo stuff. So, that was 2003's Daredevil. Caught between a soap opera, romance, and a too shiny version of a film noir. Superhero films are usually always about ethics. But the best Daredevil stories give it this kind of theological flavour, this Catholic kind of dogmatic flavour, ideas about grace and redemption, and that's absent here. And I think why it's not there, I don't know, other than maybe they just thought that would just switch a lot of the audience off. But I think the movie suffers as a result. But what about you? What do you think? Do you think the original version would have been remembered a little more fondly than the one we got? Or was Jennifer Garner's curiously green-eyed face enough to launch a million crushes and give the film a place in everybody's hearts? Does it matter that the Ben Devil just isn't Catholic enough to be true to the character? I don't know. I'll pray to St. Genesius of Rome, the patron saint of actors and lawyers, for guidance. But in case that doesn't work, send me a comment, send me a like, subscribe to me. Why not? You could learn something. I could learn something. I could learn that no one wants to watch these. Next up, X2, the return of the X-Men after their 2000 hit, laid the groundwork for this coming tsunami of blockbuster superhero movies. Actually, that's not a good thing to say in 2003, is it? I definitely saw X2 in the movies in 2003 when it came out, because I thought it was the sexiest cast I'd ever seen assembled in a movie. And Nightcrawler was cool too. So that's coming up next, X2. In the meantime, keep all your senses sharp, and I shall catch you all, hopefully, further on downstream.
Go get him, Matt.